Well, what we had in common was we were both the oldest of our groups. But that's an interesting thing because basically our memory, being Dave and Chris, our memories of our older brothers were limited.
Mm-hmm.
It was always a thrill whenever one came by.
Mm-hmm.
I would say a significant event that I can remember was in 1953 when Grandpa Pooh had an event out at the farm, what we call our farm,
Mm-hmm.
because Tim was coming home from Europe for a visit.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I would say that was the first time that we were ever all together. Only one person was married at the time, it was Titus. So that's how far back we go.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a pretty fond memory, but because of our separation in ages, it really hasn't been until recent years where we have actually, the seven of us,
Mm-hmm.
really got to intermingle.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it was. When I got married, when I got to that point I got married, I moved up here. Tim and I were probably the only two out of everyone that really lived in the same area and intermingled over a period of years.
Yeah, that's true.
As far as childhood went, they were a different group and we were a different group.
When did you move into the Indiana, the Chicago area?
In 1967.
1967.
Got married 2 years later.
So I was married in 58.
I'm sorry, 1966.
66. Right. Okay. So from that time on, we've been pretty much together.
Right.
And then we're now in 2001.
2001.
Yeah. Well, I can remember when I would come home. Tony was just a little boy. In fact, he was crawling, I remember.
Wow.
And I got a hold of a camera, a 16 millimeter
Mm-hmm.
camera, and some film. And I took the pictures and had them developed. He had curly hair, remember, he was a little boy, and a lot of hair at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know whatever happened to the film. I always wondered about that because I had left the film at home.
Oh.
And I remember Priscilla back on Johnson Street, 29, wasn't it? 29 Johnson Street.
Right.
And I remember her on a swing. I was pushing her on a swing, and then some neighbor boy came by and picked on her. I remember that. I just come back from the missionary work for a couple of weeks. I was home.
How old were you this time?
Oh my, we just have to start subtracting from 783. When was it? 1950, was it?
What's that?
Huh?
You came home in 53.
Well, I came home before that.
Earlier, okay.
I came home 1950. There was an assembly in 1950.
So you were 23 years old.
Okay.
You were born in 27?
Yeah.
In 53?
I'll say
Makes you what? Make you early 20s. Seven, Priscilla would be 2.
Wow.
That's about right there.
About right, yeah.
She'd be 2 years old.
The difference in our experiences are interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The differences in our experiences. First of all, I experienced a depression in this country. Tony didn't. In fact, when the war was over, there was more money around.
Mm-hmm.
And I remembered seeing all kinds of toys around the house. And they were pretty expensive toys.
Mm-hmm.
And he was spoiled. He got used to
Right.
things that we couldn't afford.
Mm-hmm.
Not that my parents didn't want to provide for us, but they couldn't. And it's very different. In fact, I feel that the Second World War was connected was the Depression. You know, first of all, it was the Second World War that made the difference. Economy picked up because the U.S. started thinking about going into debt to win the war. And the different programs they had for building ships and planes and guns and bombs and so on and so forth put everybody to work. And it became a military economy. And so in 1945, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, things were picking up.
Mm-hmm.
And the Depression was over. It was not over in 39, like a lot of people think.
Yeah, that's true. But it just things started changing.
They started
And
changing.
they've had hope. They had
Yeah.
some kind of sense of hope.
Right.
So they felt better, and if they, without thinking, they reverse back, and they somehow they think 38, 39. That's true.
Yeah. Oh, this is how I remember it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a certain attitude. You know, Jehovah's Witnesses as a society were immature because they had a certain idea about how things were going to turn out. The Jehovah's Witnesses were neutral politically, militarily, all over the world. They didn't support Hitler during the war. They didn't salute the swastika. Jehovah's Witnesses in this country didn't salute the flag. And this made them targets. And so we turned inward. And we were waiting for Armageddon to save us.
Mm-hmm.
We expect it was tough. I had a gun pulled on me twice. And I was only a kid, going from door to door.
Mm-hmm.
And one time, I know it was loaded. It was a shotgun. And I heard the click, click.
Mm-hmm.
And the man was definitely ready to pull the trigger. And the reason was the propaganda in this country was that this country was in trouble militarily, and Jehovah's Witnesses were not supporting it. The reason I mention that is that we were out there preaching now with a sense of urgency.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever we were, Germany, Greece, Italy, wherever we were, we thought the end was close. So that affected the way we behaved. That affected the decisions we made about marriage, staying single, working, going into full-time missionary work, so on and so forth.
Okay, that's interesting. Because as you were saying this, I'm contrasting now how things that went in our mind. Of course, we had some of the same things, but the war was over. Things were changing. And you mentioned about fond memories, and it's interesting because I remember my dad used to take me to the beach a week every year. And looking back to the whole scene, that's like prosperity, you know, compared to what you guys did as kids. So today, I think that was a big reason that these family reunions have been kind of centered around water, although we hope to do some different things in the future. But for most of us, we all kind of like the water.
Mm-hmm.
Except I think Uncle Dave doesn't. He's not a beach guy.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.